this lesson on lists in Python. A list is similar to an array in other languages, although I would argue that the Python list is much more powerful than an array in other languages like C, C++, Java, and that ilk. So for a list, we just have to define our variable, and you can see here I've defined a variable called Rainfall, and I've said it's equal to, and then I have square brackets, and then I can separate my items in my list with commas. And if I print my list out, you can see that over here it just prints out the full contents of the list. I can print out individual items in the list. So again, I just have to print Rainfall, and this time I can specify the index I want to print out. Now if I select 1 and I run that, you should find that I get number 45 printed out. That's because, like a lot of other languages, a list, like an array in other languages, is indexed from 0, and we've seen that already. So all of our list items are indexed, and the index always starts from 0. So if I change my 1 to a 0, I will get number 23 printed out. Just to prove that. If I want to print all of them out separately, I can use my for loop. So say for I in range, and to find the length of my list, I can use the len function, and then if I say I want to print out index item I, need to make sure that I indent. So now I've got for I in range, so it's going to go from 0 to the length of the rainfall variable, and if I print that out or look at the output from that, you should find that I get all the items listed. The other thing I can do is I can add items. So I can say rainfall dot append, and I can append another value. So I'll append 45 onto the end, and now if I run that, we should find we get the list with an additional 45 sitting on the end. I can also count how many items I've got. So I can say print, I'll just put some output with that. Might help if I put the brackets round. Let me get the syntax right. So it will be rainfall dot count, and that will tell me how many items I've actually got. Sorry, that will tell me how many items I've got of a particular value. So I need to select a value to put in. So I've got 23, 45, 34, 54, 12 and 34. So there's two 34s, so if I put 34 in as the one I want to check, and I run that, I've got a syntax error because I forgot my comma. Go back, run that again, and you can see that the count is 2 because I was checking for 34, and I've got two 34s. And just to prove that the append, if I actually copy that information, and in this time, instead of looking for 34, I look for 45, and I'll run that. We should see that first of all the count is 1, then when I add the other 45 the count goes up to 2. If I want to insert a value, so I don't want the value to go on the end, I can actually say rainfall dot insert, and I can say which element I want to insert. So if I wanted to insert it at the second element, so I'll have to put 1 for the index, and I want that to be a 45 as well. And now I run my program. You'll see I've gone from 1 to 3 values of 45. I've used the append and I've used the insert to actually add more values. I can also remove values. So my last value is 45 at the moment. So I could actually remove the last value. If I want to remove the last one, I can actually use a special function called pop, or method called pop, and that will remove the last thing in the list. So if we just run that, and we see that the last 45 has now disappeared. I can also use another function called remove. So now modify the program again. So now what I'm doing is I have got my original list, I have printed it out, I've got a count for how many times 45 appears. I've added 45 to the end, I've added 45 at position 1. I've then counted how many 45s I have, I've printed them out again. I've now removed the last value and I've printed out again and done a count. So if I just run that, so what we can see here, we've got my original list, my count for number of 45s was 1. I then added 2 more 45s, so its count has gone up to 3, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3 45s. I've then run the pop command and removed one of the 45s from the end. I'm now going to remove 45 completely from the list, so I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to say rainfall dot remove 45. Now I'm going to run that, and it has removed the first 45 that it come across. So I'm now back to my original list, and it's gone down, the count for 45s has gone down to 1. So we've seen how we can cycle through the lists. We can print them all out, we can print individual items out, we can add values, and we can remove values. So let's see what else we can do with lists. Okay, so now we're going to look at creating a program to use lists in a particular way. So we're going to use functions. Here you can see the outline of the program. So what we're going to do is have a main function, which will just at the moment print out all the items in the list. We're then going to create a function that will add an item to the list. We're going to create a function to calculate the average of all the items, and we're going to calculate a function, we're going to add a function to calculate the maximum, or find the maximum value in the list. So at the moment this program won't do a great deal apart from output the list that I've actually got. So if I just run that, we can see that all it does is output the list. So if I want to add an item to the list, I need to go to my add item function, and simply I can ask or create a variable called new item and say that equals int input and enter a new item. So now we have a new item entered. Now I've not put any error checking round. We should be putting error checking round, but for this example I just want to concentrate on lists. So now I've got a choice. I can either insert that at a particular place, or I can just append it to the end. In this case I'm just going to append it to the end. So I'm going to put rainfall dot append, and new item is what I want to append. Okay, now this obviously isn't going to run yet, so I need to go back to my main function, and I'm going to call add item and pass to it rainfall. I'm then going to print out the information again. So we'll have print rainfall and that will now print it out a second time. So if I run that program, ask me for a new item, put in 45, and now I've got 45 appended to the end of my list. So you can see that by passing the parameter, it will actually get amended within the function itself. So the next one is a little bit more difficult, so I'm going to find the average of the rainfall. So for that I can say for I in range and I can say len rainfall. So I know that's going to go round my loop. I can then say, I missed a bracket out there. No, I've got a problem. That's better. So now I can say that sum equals rainfall I, or sum, better still, sum plus equals rainfall I, so that will add them all together. One thing I do need to do is say that sum is equal to 0 at the start before I go around my loop. So my loop has now added everything together. I can now finish the loop, because that's all I wanted to do, was to get the total value. I can now say average equals sum divided by oops, divided by, and I'm going to have to use len rainfall again. In fact, I don't need the first bracket. Once I've got that, so I've got the average, I can then just return average. That could have, those two lines could have been done in one. I can now come up here and I can print the average. What did I call it? Average rain. And I'll pass to it rainfall. So that should be okay. That should print out my average rainfall. Just out of interest, if I copy this line, so I actually do it twice. So before I add my item, I'll also print out my rainfall. Got a problem with my indenting there. So let's try that. So if I run that, what do I get? So my average at the moment is 33.6 and lots of zeros. If I add another 45, my average has now gone to 35.28. So the one thing I could do is format my output, but like I say, I'm concentrating on working with the lists today, not doing the other things. So how do we go about working out the maximum? Because that's the next thing we're going to do. Okay, so what do we need to do to find the maximum? Well, we need to go through our list and we need to find the highest value. So what we can do first of all is say high equals rainfall 0. We can then use our for. In fact, I'll copy it because it's a little bit easier. So we'll use our for statement we've been using. Alright, so we'll copy our for statement. And we've got for I equals, so for I in the range up to the maximum number, and then we can use our if statement. So we can say if rainfall I is greater than high, so if the current rainfall element that we're checking is higher than the highest value we got recorded so far, we will actually make I equal to that one. And then at the end of our loop, we've just got to return high. So let's print out our maximum value. Okay, so we just got to print out whatever the maximum is. So we're going to call max rain, pass to it rainfall, and that should give us our maximum value. Okay, and if we just run that program, we've got our numbers. Is found 56 to be the highest. That happened to be the last one, so I will just run that again. So I'll make our last one a low value, and it finds 54, which is in the middle. Right, that's just important to decide really with the testing. So because our last value happened to be the highest, we couldn't be 100% certain that our max function was working correctly, because it may just have taken the last value in the list. So we need to test it a couple of times and make sure we've got a value in the middle of the list, which is the highest. Okay, I'll finish there for today. We'll do more on lists in the future.